Talk about blast from the past, the K20 Civic is back. That's right, everybody. The K20 Civic is back, but it's not back for a build series. It's actually back for us to prep for sale. This is my brother's car. If you guys are longtime viewers of this channel, you will know we built it for him, and he has been using it, but lately it's just been sitting around, and I told him, I'm like, you know what? Now is the time to sell it if you're sitting on it. But first, let's take this thing for a ride because I miss the K20 powered. Welcome to K20 Civic life, DP. Does this like bring back your youth?
It does. I feel 20 years younger driving this thing. And, you know, in a good way and a bad way, because it's not exactly refined and sophisticated.
No, my goodness. We've been spoiled with, like, you know, driving the wagon and sedan. And I feel like going back to this car, you just remember, you know, what Civics are, how they're just so practical. They were commuter cars.
Yeah.
They weren't cars necessarily built for all the amenities.
No, very basic, but all that goodness that Honda's had in this era, you know, with the double wishbone suspension and the lightweight and the simplicity.
Yes.
I do still love these cars very much.
They just, they do, I feel, you know, struggle when you're like driving here, you get over the bumps.
Yeah.
You know, this is certainly
it's a pretty aggressive suspension
that's set up for that, exactly.
Yeah.
And you do get like the throttle so touchy, you can see there, you kind of like, if you hit a bump while you're driving, it reacts like so quickly. And I mean, it's awesome for the track.
Yeah.
Right? And I think this car is a roll bar and a couple mods away from being a full track car that you can still drive on the street. Like, this certainly is the opposite of a daily driver. You would not daily drive this car, right?
I mean, you could. I used to daily drive my race car, but you'd have to be very committed to that life. That's for sure. All right, PT, we got a bit of room here. Let's
send the VTEX.
That's half wheel spin.
Oh, yes, man. Feel that thing pulling all the way. Oh.
That thing rips.
Dude.
That thing rips.
So good. Like, I love K's.
So immediate,
Civic.
right?
Yeah,
like, it's just instantaneous power. It revs so high, like I was burying the needle there.
Oh man, it's so good. It just has like this special like race motor feel, you know? Like it just rips and it pulls so hard up top. It just gives you this motorsports feel.
It does.
And I think that's always been my case for the K20. I think the K24 from like a fast lap time perspective, from making more power perspective, is there. Where the K20 just has this like RPM.
Oh yeah.
Just makes it feel so good. And like, listen to that sound.
Oh,
man.
it's amazing.
So
and the gearbox too. I mean,
you
forget how good these K boxes are, but I wasn't sure if I was in second gear because I'm not used to how short and precise this gearbox is.
But like this Ktune box, once you get used to it, is fabulous.
Wow, it's really good.
So perfect. Like as a track box, like for the racetrack, it's just superb.
I don't know if you guys can see, but I got goosebumps just from that rip.
There you go.
That's how good that rip was, guys.
Give me another second gear pull here, DP.
It is good, man.
It's so good.
You don't need caffeine when you got a K20 in your life.
God, that just, yeah, baby.
It's kind of amazing how quick this car is, because on paper it shouldn't feel that fast.
No.
Like, this thing feels really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like, around the city, point A to B, a lightweight car with a super responsive setup like this is going to be way faster than like a 2JM3 is, because you don't have to wait for the power ever.
Yeah,
it's just immediate power. It's so good. Man.
Baby, man. Oh, this thing's so good. Like, the smile that these cars bring when you drive them hard. Oh, yeah.
It's actually spinning the tires a lot there. Like, it's crazy quick, man. It really is. It's also pretty loud. Like, we don't have a quiet exhaust system on this car.
No. I mean, that's how you make the power.
Yeah, these guys need a 3-inch exhaust.
Like,
but it does sound cool. I mean,
Yes.
it's a very distinctive Honda experience to rip a K20
100%
around.
it is.
But it is a cool sound. It does get me excited, I'm not gonna lie.
This being an original Canadian car, it has seen winters, which means there is a tiny bit of rust on it. However, considering its age, the mileage, which is 265,000 kilometers or 170,000 miles, the body is actually remarkably in good shape. And that is because the person previously had religiously rust-proofed it, which means it did not rot. There's a couple of minor spots. We'll start off with this one, which I think is the worst one on the chassis. It's been painted, but you can see the paint's chipped here and there's a bit of like rust there. And then let's go to the other side and I'll show you the other minor spot. But on this side, you can see this quarter here is actually clean, which this is such a typical area for rust on these vehicles. We have rolled this, so it's not in the best condition, like it's not minty straight, but there's no rust here, which is, I think, the most important part. As you can see, here is that minor rust spot I mentioned. A body shop should be able to clean this up with no issues. That's if you want to do it. I personally would, because this kind of stuff just continues to rot and spread.
For rolling stock, she is still on these beautiful Koenig hypergrams in a 15 by 7.5 plus 35-ish offset. I believe that's correct. And for tires, it actually has a brand new set of Nankang NS2Rs in a 205 50/15. These are a very sticky 200 tread wear tire, which work remarkably well as a track tire. In fact, we ran these on our Miata for that whole YouTube series, and they stood up to abuse very well. So definitely a track-worthy tire that you can still run on the street and still performs well in the wet. For brakes, we did do a Type R conversion, though not a 5-lug. It's a Type R caliper with a Mini Cooper rotor, and obviously we also have a track pad in there. I believe those are like a Hawk DTC 70 in there. And out back, we also did do a disc conversion. This was originally a drum car, so it does have disc brakes in the rear. Nothing crazy for a brake pad in the back, because if you know about front wheel drive cars, you don't want an aggressive pad in the rear. So that covers off the wheels, tires, and brakes. And for suspension, we do have Ktune's K2 circuit spec coilovers in there, fully adjustable for ride height, pretty aggressive spring rates, as we mentioned during that drive on the street. It is a circuit or track spec suspension, so it's really designed for that. And this car is really set up as a track car primarily. So potential buyers out there, think of this as a track car that you could drive on the street occasionally, but really it's meant to go and rip tech at the track.
Dave, I know you were gonna try to open the hood here and you figured, wait, where's the latch? Where'd it go? I don't see it anywhere. And yeah, true story, there should be a pull latch right here, but of course it's broken. So what you gotta do is reach in with your finger and pull it and pop it like that.
Obviously, the specialness of this car really lives under the hood. This is a K20 Z3 out of an 8th gen SI. Fairly high mileage. I think it was over 200K, wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah.
It does have the LSD transmission, which is in great shape. And as you can see, it's got like Ktuned everything on here. If you go back and watch the original 2-build series, really, we did the first one, which we called the 5-day track build challenge. That's when we just dropped this in basically as a stock K20, and then in the second part we added some drop-in cams from Drag Cartel, which Rui from Ktune helped us do, and added a bunch of other good stuff like this 3.5-inch Ktune exhaust, this 72mm Ktune
intake.
throttle body, sorry, intake, 3.5-inch diameter intake, 72mm Ktuned throttle body, their fuel system, their shifter cables, has port engine mounts. It's got all the good stuff on it, doesn't it? And Pete's magical special blue valve cover on there, which
It's been around with me for a long time, yeah.
takes you back to California. It's got a CSF rad in the front as well, which actually maybe cools too well, but we'll talk about that later. Really not the rad's fault actually, is it, Pete? So we'll get that sorted out later, but this made about 210 at the wheel the last time we had it dynoed, and frankly that's a little soft. This motor with those cams in it should probably make 220 to 230 at the wheel. So we've always suspected that the engine is maybe just a little on the soft side. As a matter of fact, we should really do a compression check today, shouldn't we, Pete? Just to show people those numbers. But we do plan to drop the car off to Nick from Tuning by Nick, and he's a well-known Honda tuner here in the GTA area, and he has a YouTube channel called Tuning by Nick. So if you jump over his channel right now, you can see him giving this thing a retune, touching it up, and making any changes he thinks the car needs to try to like optimize the setup as much as we can, so that for the next owner, this thing is really dialed in as best it can be.
Inside here, you guys already saw we were ripping hard with this Ktuned shifter. I love this thing. It is amazing on track. Feels so nice. The clutch is a competition clutch. It has a light and flywheel, so you know this thing does rev pretty quickly. It is a little rough on cold start because it doesn't have the I think it's the IAC, right?
Idle air control.
The idle air control valve, and without that, it does start. It kind of just sits at like 800 RPM. It still runs. It's just a little like rough. So we do have AEM gauges in here, which is water, oil, and oil temperature. The downside of the oil temperature is this does really need to be relocated to an area that's like in the oil pan or somewhere where it gets a proper reading. Right now it's teed off, so it's not really getting an accurate reading, so that should be changed out. Energy deep dish wheel with the quick release. Does have an alarm system though. My brother did put this on. This is like the circa 2000 Viper alarm system. It does work though, so that's also a nice thing. It has an SIR cluster, which you really need when you're revving it out to 9,000 RPM. Looks really nice. It says 300,000 kilometers on the cluster, but as Dave mentioned, the engine's got around 200K on it. This seat is the stock seat. We do have a Momo seat that is gonna come with the sale of this car. We just put this in because for putting around here, it's much more comfortable than sitting in the bucket. It does have harnesses here that are ready to go, these Cobra ones.
Underneath, you can see that the aluminum oil pan does have a JB Weld patch job here, and there's some scuff marks, so this definitely took a hit at some point. It doesn't leak any oil now, but we never took this pan off and put baffling in it. So if you're gonna take this car to like big tracks with big sustained, high G corners, you're definitely gonna wanna put some kind of a baffle system in this pan. For TMP, this was fine, but for you guys, maybe strongly consider baffling the pan. Underneath, you can also see it's got Hasport axles and a Ktuned 4-to-1 header into a K-Teller exhaust system. We've got Ktuned lower control arms here, and I believe we've got hard race adjustable upper control arms. Isn't that right, Pete?
Yes.
And as we move back,
you can see the chassis is like pretty undercoated, which is great because it's not rusted at all, right?
It's true. It has been very thoroughly undercoated probably for over a decade. So there's really no rot visible here, and there's no soft spots either. Like if you come around to the usual places where these cars get soft, it still feels really good because the original owner was obsessed with undercoating. You can see on the rear lower control arms, the big compliance bushing here that always goes bad has been upgraded with a hard race one with hardened rubber inside. It's also got a full complement of hard race adjustable arms back here for camber and toe adjustability, hard race lower control arms as well, an ASR subframe brace because these subframes do tear out if you put a bigger bar on the back like we did with this Eibach bar.
I should mention the muffler is a Ktune one, and it does have a silencer in it for the street.
Yes, and it still makes lots of sound on the street, but it'll keep you out of trouble having the silencer in there. Taking that out probably does free up, what, 5 or 10 horsepower, Pete?
I think so, yeah.
Something in that neighborhood, and does make it sound like a race car.
Well, this is a good sign. I remember doing this and a Leakdown test way back a couple years ago, and we had the same results, around 220 PSI, which means it's still a very, very healthy motor. Again, we're not sure why it's a little soft. Like sometimes, not every motor is going to make that perfect amount of power, but it's still a ton of fun to drive. It still makes plenty of power. I should have released that here. So I think with that, it's conclusive. Like we've ripped this car a lot on the racetrack. There's nothing wrong with it. Yes, it's down about 10 horsepower, but you know what? like in the grand scheme of things, I don't think you're gonna really feel it in your butt right now. Having driven this thing for a couple weeks now, on and off, I did notice that it does take a long time to come up to temperature. And after talking to Ktuned about it, the problem seems to stem from the thermostat in that Ktuned housing. The manufacturer there, the Honda OEM one, has a 2-stage system where this one is a single stage, and what's happening is it's slowly opening up. And because we have this massive CSF radiator and the cool temperatures that I was experiencing, what happened was it's always just like bleeding off cool coolant into the engine, and you just never get this thing up to operating temperature, especially on the highway. So thankfully Ktuned does have a new one that is dropping, and they are going to supply that to me. I'm literally gonna go pick it up tonight, and then I'll have it for tomorrow. And we also have a small little leak on the upper radiator hose, and I think that's from where we spliced it together. So at this point, what we need to do is drain the entire cooling system, and then we can kind of like examine everything. Place your bets, people. Is this going to be a massive mess all over me, or am I gonna get away with a clean pull of the drain plug here?
I think it's gonna be all right. It won't make a mess until you put the bucket down.
There we go. Wow. It's a gusher.
Or you can go for the long pour.
Oh, but then it just splashes everywhere.
You gonna lower the car now?
Okay, let's lower the car. I'm gonna get it down there by the time it all runs out. Look at this. Come on.
Yep.
Ktuned doesn't make a hose that fits the CSF rad. It's kind of an oddball one, because it moves the outlet a little bit further over this way, and to line up with their other thermostat house, or their coolant housing there. And what we've done is we've spliced these together, but we used the wrong diameter like adapter in there, and you can see it's just like squeezed super tight here. We may have had a bit of shrinkage and deformage happen here. Probably because this is not meant for ripping tech. This is for household plumbing, as you can see, and man, it deformed like crazy. Look at this thing. No wonder it was leaking. Like, look at this one spot here. It essentially like caved in on itself. And I suspect that's because my brother, when this was dripping, I'm sure he just went, you know what, I'll just crank it down a little bit more, crank it down a little bit more, and it just like slowly shrunk this down. So it's amazing how simple these cars are to work on. I have missed the Hondas.
Yeah.
After working on the BMW for so long and then switching over to this car, especially the K-swap, like there's so much room.
Yeah.
And you're never like fighting with anything here. It's just, you have access to it. Even here, like you can see, this thermostat housing is pretty cramped, but like I have a ton of access to it. And I'm just gonna take these bolts out, and we should be able to like pull the whole thing down. Huh. Here's the thermostat housing in DP.
Where's the thermostat?
Where is the thermostat? Oh man. You know, that design flaw that we were talking about, I don't know if this is it or not, but it looks like, this could be, full disclosure, this could be user install error. This thermostat sits here. This locking
Snap ring, right?
ring here should be in here, which holds this in place.
Yeah. So we didn't get the snap ring in
And this was
properly.
like completely out. So essentially I had no thermostat in this car.
You were running open, yeah.
Yeah, which is probably why there was a lot of issues. You can see we had this apart because this is not an OE. We drilled a hole in this, I think, to allow it to bypass a little bit. So anyways, like I said, Ktuned has a new unit that's going to fix a lot of this. And the other problem is if we wanted to replace this, this is not something that is used in an RSX or Honda application, so it's not readily available, and the new one is. So let's just cut to tomorrow where I have all these parts now. Hot off the Ktuned machine press is this, which is a working prototype, so thank you to those guys over there. They sent this over. This, by the time this video publishes, these should be ready to buy, but this is their brand new thermostat housing with what is a new two-stage thermostat. So you can see this actually is an OEM replacement style unit. So it has a two-stage system, which is gonna work much, much better. And they even sent me all these billet pieces here. So you can see they start off with this, and then they machine this cap into this piece here, which is raw, and then it gets finished to this. And man, the finish they put on this is like super neat, and you can just see like the raw machining process down to this, where everything's just so smooth and nice, which is super, super cool. And you can understand why some of this stuff costs some money, because look at the amount of time and effort it takes to build this. One of the really neat features of this thermostat housing is that it is actually adjustable. See, it needs to be swiveled a little bit more, I think that way. Bam. So now I know where that is. It's lined up, doesn't seem to have any tension, so I'm gonna bolt this down. It also looks like we're not going to have to splice that upper rad hose together. Thankfully, Ktuned to the rescue again. I was talking to Sean over there, mentioned our problem, and he said, look, we've got this. This is an updated version of our upper coolant housing, and we have some hoses that fit around our big intake. So I'm gonna fit this up here, and I bet any money, judging by the looks of it, this guy should work here. Upper coolant housing is in place, and I did have to shorten the hose, the Ktuned hose here, but it's going to fit now, which is perfection. I just had to take a little bit off each end, but we are in no kinks, so that is a major victory here. K motors are notoriously hard to bleed, which means they do collect air pockets the conventional way. If you fill them up and then you have to like really burp the system, you got to like raise the whole front end. Or what you can do is use this airlift system that we have, which is a vacuum bleeding system, and as a bonus it's going to let us know if we have any leaks. So all I'm going to do is hook up an air hose to this right now, and you can hear now it's starting to pull vacuum. I'm going to crack this open, and you can watch this gauge here. So now it's pulling vacuum. We want to be around like that 25 HG marker. Hoses are probably going to collapse, so you have a lot of that happening, but that is a-okay. Disconnect this. And now the nice thing is, if we watch this gauge, if this starts bleeding off, then you know you've got a leak in the system. But thankfully right now we are holding steady. So we can safely say we don't have any leaks, so we can now start to fill the system. I've got 3 gallons of the Xerox Valvoline Asian coolant in this bucket. And now you can see I've got a hose that runs back into this. So what's gonna happen is, as I open this, it's gonna draw all the fluid back in, and theoretically there's no air in it. So it's kind of a brilliant system, and this isn't super expensive. And I think it's certainly worth it. There she goes.
Well, we had a quick look on the dipstick while we were up there, and the oil looked pretty dark and dirty. So we figured Jake probably didn't change the oil anytime recently. We're blaming everything on Jake today. It's Blame Jake Day. I'm trying to make you some money, buddy, but in the process, you're gonna take some hits. So we figured, why not get the oil out of here? I'm going the wrong way. I'm tightening it when I should be
Oh, that's
loosening it.
perfect. Strip an oil pan right now, DP. We'll do that too.
Busting Jake's chops here instead of paying attention, but I did put gloves on because my history with oil is not great. You know, I tend to make a mess. So unless I'm doing a 20-foot pour, things are gonna get messy. So here we go, everybody.
Well, I managed to avert everything with the coolant, so oh yeah, look at that.
You know,
good job.
That's what the gloves are for.
Nice thing about these K&N oil filters is they do have that nut on the end of them, so you can spin the filter off easy.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's pretty handy. And I did watch a recent episode of Engine Masters with Freiberger and those dudes, and these K&N oil filters, they did like a full shootout on oil filters.
It's a really well done episode, actually. If you subscribe to that service, go check it out. But these K&Ns ranked extremely well. They had what I would say was the best combination of filtration and flow. The best one, performance-wise, was the Wix Racing filter, but the caveat to that is that it has much poorer filtration, so it allows through larger particles than the K&N one does. And the difference in performance is so small, to me it makes sense to go with the K&Ns.
because you get better filtration with very similar performance.
So essentially the K&N is the best one.
Well, I think for a street application, it certainly is. If you're running a race car where you're changing the oil constantly and you're not too worried about, you know, microns and filtration at that level, then go with the Wicks. But for a street car where you're running longer oil intervals, to me, the K&N's the way to go. Time to fill her up, and for that, we are going with Valvoline's VR1 in a 10W30 weight. And if you're unfamiliar with VR1, this is actually a racing motor oil. It's a very high zinc formula, as the label would indicate, and typically you don't want to run a high zinc formula on the street because it can foul the cat or damage the cat. So if you have a catalytic converter on your car, you could run this, just I wouldn't use it for extended periods. You could like put it in for a weekend at the track and then go back to a you know, more of a street oil, a lower zinc formula. The beauty of zinc is that it does an exceptional job of protecting your bearings. So that's really why you want it in your engine for track days or for a track car where you're not required to have a catalytic converter on it.
I also forgot to mention, this thing does have a DCEG subframe, which moves this motor back and into a better position for track, because the EK one like has it too far forward. And there's just a host of other Ktuned goodies I think we forgot to mention. These are like quick disconnect hood hinges, so you can actually take this whole hood off if you want to. We've got a Ktuned harness in here as well. We do have a Honda that's tunable on this vehicle, obviously. So that is it. Now, I'm sure most of you are wondering, well, PT, what is the price on such an amazing K20 Honda Civic that has so much pedigree and heritage? And I think the price of $15,000 Canadian is very fair for the market today. With that being said, by all means, hit me up, Peter at speed.academy, and let me know in the comments. Are we off on the price? Are we too low, too high? You never know. We have one last thing, one piece of Honda content that I want to show you guys. And here it is, a Honda Ruckus. This has been sitting in the back corner of the shop. If you guys watched the cleanup video, you may have seen it here and there. And we just dug it out. Long story short here, Dave bought this off of one of his buddies. I bought this off of Dave. I drove it in downtown Toronto, enjoyed it. Now that I don't live downtown anymore and I have a kid, I don't want to drive a scooter anymore. So it's time to sell this thing too. The battery, because this has sat for about 3 years or so, the battery is completely dead, so I just bought a new one. Now the question is, will this thing start up? I did have fuel stabilizer in it when I knew this was going away, so I did have fuel stabilizer in it, so I don't think the carb is gonna be completely choked up here. But should we give her here, DP, and see what happens?
All right, let's do it.
This is like, you know, this is the Honda reliability here.
That's right.
This is the
ultimate
test to see if this thing is gonna come alive. Oh, that's a fuel pump turning on.
Is that what that was? Okay.
Yeah, all right. So, on, you gotta push the brake, I think, and...
Fired right up.
No way.
That's amazing. Oh, it's struggling a little.
But dude, like the thing just like spun for 2 seconds and came alive.
I know, that's incredible.
Oh, the good old Hondas.
You think the carb would have been gummed up or something, but
you can't beat them, man.
you can't break them.
Let's see here.
A little gas,
Oh,
yeah.
look at that. It's not even like choking off.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Man, well you can't sell it now, PT. It's too good.
Honda quality, guys. Look at that.
How about a package deal on this and the Track Prep Civic?
All right, well, if someone's interested in a Honda Ruckus and a Honda Civic, let me know. I guess price-wise, I've been seeing these around like $1,500, so I'll probably, you know, price it around there. So if you're interested, shoot me an email. And I think we are done there, Dave? Or wait. I think there's one more thing. Now, we did start off as a Honda channel with our S2000 build, and we did that Honda K20 Civic, and we have been lacking in Honda content lately. So for those of you that are huge Honda aficionados, don't worry. We're not sure when, but something is coming, and it's going to be grand. That's all I'm gonna show you. That is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Reliving a little bit of that K20 magic for me has reignited the love of Hondas. So I hope once again you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give me a like and a thumbs up. which is the same thing, but do it anyways, and make sure to subscribe as well. Hit that notification bell, unclick it, hit it again, do it a million times, watch this video 10 times over, and that'll help us grow this channel. Thanks guys, we'll see you in the next one.
That's also 174 centimeters.
We have 0 toe.
0 toe.
Okay.
Which is a bit surprising. Like typically we set up any car, front wheel drive, all wheel drive, rear wheel drive, to have a bit of toe out to help it with turn in.